Hi, and welcome to the Apostates Playground. This is the Halloween episode where we're starting recording in the middle of what's about to be a whisper fight about the fact that Cee Cee just implied that you can have too many Italian sorcerers in an episode about the devil.
I didn't say that.
That was your implication.
That was definitely not my implication.
It was implied. It was
You really started out. You really chose.
I'm starting out that way.
You chose the wrong hill.
I'm choosing
chose
violence.
the wrong hill to die on. Chose to.
How many Italian sorcerers? What's the upper limit?
I never said there was.
You heavily implied it.
No, I don't think so.
I could see it in the tone of your eyes that you spoke to me with.
What am I saying now?
They're a reflection of your finger. So the episode proper starts off with the show has been kind of a downer, and I figured that we could probably have a little bit of fun going through time and tracing a vacation that the devil took in the 16 and 1700s through Europe for a gap year. And then because I accidentally uninstalled a piece of software instead of opening it because they put those buttons right next to each other when we recorded this on Sunday, we're back here now recording it again because when I reinstalled it, I forgot to update my settings to what they needed to be, so I didn't have the right audio files when it recorded and downloaded, and now I have to do it again. So
this is the guy who chose to die on the Italian Sorcerer hill. People just think about that.
Maybe if I had more Italian sorcerers, I wouldn't have screwed that up.
That's a you problem.
They're very. I don't have any Italian sorcerers.
Maybe you should get on that.
Yeah, maybe I should, and I'll get all of them, and then you'll be like, "This is too many Italian philosophers, sorcerers."
Well, we'll never know until you get them, will we?
There is so much manicotti.
Manicotti's not bad.
It's not.
It sounds like like you're implying that manicotti, there's a limit to how much manicotti you should have.
There is.
Is that what you're implying, Phineas?
No, I'm stating that because there's only a certain amount of manicotti you can eat before you physically die. So the upper limit is just before death, and then anything else that's going to go bad, too much manicotti. How many Italians can you eat before you die, Cee Cee? How many Italian sorcerers?
Oh, we're going down cannibalism now. I see.
It's exhausting. Have you ever tried eating an Italian sorcerer?
You only really need to eat the heart to gain the power.
Well, yeah,
obviously.
But first you have to pull out a machete and start like whacking away at chest hair like you're going through the fucking jungle. By the time you're done, you have enough.
You just say the chant. And you just ram your hand through their chest. Once the ritual started, it's easy. It's like cake, you know.
Did you just say it's your kink?
It's like cake.
It's like cake.
Cake.
That's very different. Full disclosure, I'm not wearing pants.
Because that's your kink.
That's my kink. My kink is pulling a tubing.
I mean, you're in your space. You can't be comfortable in your own space. Where can you be comfortable? Anyway, we should probably.
So in the 1630s, there was a plague going on. And this plague had touched France. So in France, in this plague-ridden area where they didn't have to have plague, but Cee Cee's great-great-great-great-great-grandmother told them to quit gathering Italian sorcerers. Otherwise, the plague could have been fought off. There was an Ursuline convent. And in this Ursuline convent, there was a prioress. And this prioress's name was Jeanne d'Angers. No apologies to our French listeners. It's your fault. You shouldn't have been French. And there was a sub-prioress named Sister de Colombier and a junior nun named Sister Martha de Saint-Monique. And they found that during the night, they were being visited by an apparition of a man of the cloth, a clergyman, somebody that was definitely not an apparition. And that's just what they told themselves when they woke up.
Seems legit.
Yep. Gotta lie to yourself to cover up that trauma. So after that, there started being some weird shit going on. They started hearing voices. They began experiencing physical blows from things they weren't there, and they started bursting into giggle fits. This is just speculation on my part. I'm going to guess that at least two of those things were covers for them doing weird fuck stuff during quarantine in a plague.
Yeah. If you're on lockdown, I guess any kink in a quarantine? I don't know.
Any kink in a quarantine? That's
I don't know.
Keep a lookout for our new podcast, Any Kink in a Quarantine.
Don't look out for it. It's not happening.
It might be.
You have to
happening.
be careful. You tell people stuff, and sometimes they assume it's real, and it's like you can't give that hope.
I can't give the hope of you doing kink.
Yes.
At first, I was thinking of it's one of those like. During the quarantine, we just interview people on how they're getting by. But if you're going to open that hole, I'm going to go into it. And
that's what she said.
That is what she said. And
during the quarantine,
that was one of the convent. That was one of the kinks they tried. So speaking of things going into other things, at some point, hawthorns began being passed into the hands of the prioress. And so it was ghosts giving pieces of plants to nuns. And that's when the weird behavior like went into overdrive. On October 5th of that year, this started on the 22nd of September. On October 5th, they started doing exorcisms. And those became like really big public events. At the same time, the church launched an investigation because if you think that a bunch of your nuns are possessed, that's what you do. That investigation found that Father Urbain Grandier had struck a deal with the devil in exchange for magic sorcerer powers. He wouldn't have been caught if he were not French. He could have been Italian. So what they found that he had been doing, it's me, Satano.
What is wrong with
you? They found that what Father Grandier had been doing was casting dark spells on the nuns and then conjuring spirits to possess them, which there's a weird corner of Christian mythology where if your soul is pure, then you're protected. So what has to happen is there has to be things that go on around you to corrupt you. And that puts little holes in your armor of Jesus from Ephesians, and they can get in there and possess you. This trope is most commonly played out in the form of like in movies, there will be a guy and he's trying to do everything right. And then this girl shows up and she gets through his codpiece of power and then he's evil or something. On August 18th, 1634, Father Grandier stood for what passed as a trial in the 17th century and was sentenced to burn at the stake.
That's rough.
It's rough.
I don't know why you would even do that. Like, why you need to? Okay, go on.
No, what's up?
No. I was just sort of trailing you off. I was just saying there's no reason to need to do that unless you are just a terrible person who wants to sit and watch somebody die slowly in the name of, I don't know, like you're supposed to be holy and like great and like nice and all that, but you actively decide to burn this person and then watch them burn. Yeah.
And it was like a spectacle too. Like burnings almost never happen. Like we way overestimate the amount of burnings that happened. But like when they did, like it was a thing. Like, and I haven't looked into this. I don't know, next Halloween, maybe. Is Samhain. I think the other, like, I think because there's 8 holidays that all kind of mirror together in paganism. I think the opposite one is like Beltane, might do one on witch burning. I don't know. But I think the idea is kind of similar to Hinduism. In Hinduism, they would burn bodies because like kind of whatever burned away in the purification fires would like, that's the part that your soul's using. And then the stuff that's left behind is the toxins. So it's like a metaphysical cleanse.
I would assume that at this time that they were communicating and would actually accept the ideas of another religion.
I mean, that was a whole thing they did. We can do, actually might do some episodes on Saints' Days. So like that was part of their shtick. When you're spreading and you have a system of like saints and stuff, you don't have to invent everything, right? So like they went to Ireland and like there's St. Patrick who drove the snakes out of Ireland, which is thinly veiled way of saying he murdered a shit ton of pagans. And that's why an English guy is the patron saint of Ireland, is because he went there and he killed a bunch of Irish people. And the Catholics in England went, yay. But there's
I just figured they hadn't interacted. Like they wouldn't have. Maybe I could be wrong. There's
also Saint Bridget, who is literally the Irish fire goddess of Breed. Like they just canonized one of their gods. I think it's Lammas became Candlemas, which went from a pagan fire festival to a Catholic fire festival. And in the 1600s, they had the church had spread to India. Oh. But I think that was the idea. I think the fire was meant to be, it was just a purifying thing.
Yeah.
In the metaphysics.
Yeah, probably.
Like, yeah.
The cleansing fires of fire.
Yeah. Like speaking as to the metaphysics, speaking politically, the church wanted to hold power. After the Crusades, it was hugely wealthy. It was hugely powerful. Like you didn't get to be a king if the Pope didn't want to play nice with you. So politically, setting motherfuckers on fire because they acted funny is a hell of a power move.
It is, yeah.
Like, and then nobody can do anything to you. Like, that's a hell of a thing. So, and that leads to a lot of just like sham bullshit trials, which this was, not the least of which because Satan wielding witch priests aren't a thing, but also because it was a sham trial. A member of the first exorcism team, which I have codenamed Holy Water Team 6, named Father Tranquil, decided to take it upon himself to like lambast the rituals and methods of the church. But in doing so, he condemned skepticism about the possessions themselves and made it clear that possession is either genuinely demonic or it's voluntary and willful, which is a problem.
Those aren't one or the other. That's just like one and some things. Like, it's like, I mean, demonic possession can be like willful, like intentional and all that. It's not like those aren't two opposite options. Like,
yeah, you're right. If we take demonic possession as a real thing, either it's genuinely demonic and it's either voluntary or not. Like, it also opens up the idea that like, if the options are genuinely demonic or voluntary and willful, if we take that as an exclusive or instead of an inclusive or, what that's saying is that it's either genuine demonic hostile takeover or it's murdering people who were just acting weird.
Yeah.
And that's accidentally true.
Yeah, because it definitely didn't sound like it's what he was saying on purpose.
From what I found, it's written like an exclusive or, and if we take it that way, it's fairly fucked. Father Tranquil was a lot more cagey, though, about the fact that the court had forbidden debate or disagreement about the possessions or the trial and listed it as a capital offense, which really took like the idea of what the evidence of demons is and what the exorcist had going on and legitimized the fuck out of it. And kind of goes back to that political reason why you burn people. You don't want people asking questions. We burn people who ask questions is a big flex.
You make them go away. It just makes the problem go away. This is basically because I said so.
Pretty much. So because of that, nobody said shit until almost 1700. In 1693, there was somebody who had been exiled into Amsterdam and his account of what happened was published. And I phrase that kind of weird because reading it sounds like he published it, but doing the math, because the trial happened in 1634 and we're now in 1693, he was at least 69 years old. And the fact that he had to be alive for it to happen, kind of like, so he's pushing 80 at least in the 1600s if he was alive and remembered it.
He was very lucky.
Yeah. I need to look into Nicholas Aubin more, but he argued that his job had been undermined by the intrigues of the nuns, and he had been told how to perform the public exorcisms, how to incriminate Grandier for a crime he didn't commit, and it was all to demonstrate the power of the church over Satan / the power of the church over people not conforming to very strict cultural ideas.
Yeah, like not giggling at things.
Not giggling.
God forbid you find something funny all of a sudden to yourself.
Right?
That's just how brains work.
This was around the period of time where we decided that the cure for women acting weird was to go to the doctor and get a hand job. We had no idea what women were doing at all. Like, so she's hysterical. What do we do? Well, she really likes going to the doctor. Like,
there's worse cons.
There is. No, I mean, if I got a hand job every time I acted weird, I'd quit holding back. Wow. Speaking of getting hand jobs, this allowed the devil to go to Italy, where they keep the sorcerers and the hand jobs. And
they keep all the hand jobs locked away.
Do. I'm about to cite Weekly World News in a minute. I don't give a fuck about sourcing or citations in this one. So Italy is where they kept the hand jobs in the 1600s. And in Italy, there was a girl born, and she was born Isabella Tomasi de Lampedusa.
Can we just for a moment, just wind back to a girl born, and the fact that the emphasis you put on it was so intense. You were either going to say she was some kind of chosen one in the story, or she was a dragonborn. Like it had that implication on a girl born. It's like, why are you so dramatic with it? And that's all I heard was like a dragonborn? Like what?
In
that's
Italy, there was a girl born, and her name was Isabella Tomasi de Lampedusa. At 15, she became a monk at Palma di Monticchiaro, a Benedictine convent that reports hold may be especially strict. And they found that she was chosen by the forces of darkness. When she began to claim to suffer from possession, she began to shriek and lose consciousness at the altar during prayers. During her time in possession, during her time combating possession, she would frequently visit the confessional, attempting to protect herself in the purity of Christ. But she began to become cruel and abusive to the priest on impulse. And it was then that they found that she had indeed been chosen to be the portal for hellfire and heresy into our world. In 1676, the devil took control of the nun's body, or so she claimed.
Loud shouting chants began in the background.
That's how I read when I'm being dramatic.
No, you're gonna listen back to this later when you're editing it, and you're gonna hear exactly what I heard, and it's gonna make sense. You're gonna understand. And then listeners are gonna hear it, and they're gonna agree with me. They're gonna agree.
I don't know what they would be agreeing to. I did hear it. I'm monitoring right now. I can hear my voice, and I'm not sure what you heard that I didn't.
I didn't realize you could hear your.
I can. Did I do the weird, like, not quite English accent again that I sometimes do on accident when I'm doing voices?
You just put a lot of emphasis on girl born. Yeah.
There was a girl born. Okay.
You just have to listen to it later. You'll hear it.
I'm going to. I'll listen to it later.
It's different when it's different when you're speaking and listening to it versus when you're just listening to it.
That's fair. I mainly speak and listen to it so I can tell if I like really flub something that I didn't notice because I'm talking.
Yeah.
So that's it. We'll do 2 takes of that, and then I'll pick whichever one works best.
If you must, I guess.
I don't know. You have me all self-conscious now.
No, it wasn't bad. It was just funny because it was just like the emphasis sounded like it was like extremely important. Like she was like, you were going to say she was like the chosen like farm girl or something. And like she was going to save the world or something. I mean, like the way it was like dramatic kind of. Like
you said, like she was chosen by the devil and she was nobility. So
fair enough.
I couldn't substantiate that, but I don't know with the level of fact checking this episode I'm doing, like she was a dragonborn. Fuck it. Let's lean into it. This episode is bullshit and nonsense.
Can you hold on a second? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, do literally whatever you got to do.
My sister knocked on my door, but I responded and she didn't answer. So I think she's moved on.
Ghost knocking.
It goes better. Get the fuck out. They don't pay rent.
Well, maybe if you let him invite his friends over so he could have a magic circle.
Hell no.
But you're sitting there like, I don't want that many Italians in my house.
How do you know they're Italian? You just assume they're Italian.
Yeah, because I'm racist.
Wow. Canceled. Canceled.
It doesn't count. They're Italian. They're not people.
Ooh, there's that hill again. Interesting hills to die on.
That is a different hill. I don't know what I have against Italy today.
Italy and France.
Like we need more Italian sorcerers, but they're not people, so you can abuse them. It's a weird. I'm having
weird energy.
Yeah, I should probably
continue.
Talk. The episode's about this now. So the problem with Italy is Hitler, and that's it.
Definitely Patreon content.
Mussolini invented fascism and was buddies with Hitler, and then Hitler got fucking weird about it. And now my family's in America instead of somewhere with healthcare.
Hooray.
So fuck Italy. And then his granddaughter, Mussolini's granddaughter, tried to become president of France and got into a Twitter fight with Jim Carrey. Their source is too much weird, too recently.
Yeah.
Actually, it was about the time of World War II where my family came here from France too. So you know what? Fuck France. I want healthcare. So
don't we all?
Yeah, we do. They noticed the possession when Sister Maria Crocifissa, as Isabella was known then, started missing Sunday school or some shit. And there's something about singing, so I assume it's Sunday school. And they ran around trying to find her. And they heard her screaming. And when they busted into her room, she was covered in ink, holding a paper covered in strange symbols that were clearly written by Satan. Alternately, she stayed up all night having an episode and writing strange symbols and was found the next day in the state of being smeared with ink and exhausted and unable to breathe because she had had an episode.
Yeah,
I get it.
I can see that.
Yeah. Nobody recognized the symbols. It apparently seemed like a jumble of out-of-date letters and occult symbols. And it was signed at the bottom with alas, like she was leading into a conclusion.
Maybe it's just signed, like respectfully yours, signed by a lass. Maybe that's what she meant.
A lass. That could be it. Scottish influence.
I mean, she was supposedly writing cryptic symbols, you know?
Yeah. I like to think of it as like it's QED, right? Like QED is Latin. Well, QED isn't. QED is an abbreviation, but QED is an abbreviation for quod erat demonstrandum, which means which was to be demonstrated. So I think it's just rather, I like to think that it's 17th century QED. It's like, there is no God, should all fuck each other, kill babies, alas, fill in the rest. It also might be how I start signing letters. Just get to the end, alas. When Maria Crocifissa had calmed down enough to be able to start to speak, she started telling everybody what happened. Mother Sor Maria Seravica wrote down her account of Maria Crocifissa's account. It'd be a lot easier if they weren't all named Maria. It's a Maria problem. How do you solve a problem like Maria?
With alternate titles, I guess.
That helps. So scared and traumatized, Mother Sor Maria Seravica. Italian is a stupid language. The only reason that the more Latin a language gets, the dumber it gets. Italian is a stupid language. French is a stupid language. You don't even use half the letters you write down. The only reason why Spanish makes any sense is because Spanish is that time Latin had a baby with Arabic. And Arabic I don't know, it's fine. A lot of it sounds really pretty. And when you write it, it looks like Elvish. So I actually don't have a beef against the Arabic language. It made Spanish tolerable.
You done?
So Mother Sor stupid name.
Just call her the mother. Use her name once and then call her the mother or Mother Maria. That solves your problem.
So
that solves your problem with Maria.
So Maria wrote down a letter of what Maria said in the Maria notes. Said, remind me of a West Side Story. After Sister Maria dictated what happened to Mother Maria, the mother wrote, she said that having confessed days before, she being sister, having confessed days before the demons told her that many words spoken of irreverence toward her confessor, she saw herself surrounded by a great number of furious evil spirits sent by order of infernal Lucifer, and taking the paper and the pen that Crocifissa, crocodile had in order to write, and commanding one of those damned spirits to write, Lucifer was immediately obeyed. And while dictated what he wrote, the words were all against God, which is, I assume, a terrible translation.
Who knows? It got a little tangled up there.
It did. I mean, basically, it just says that Maria was there and then Satan showed up and said, hey, I'm going to dictate a note. Hey, you take over her body and write the note. Fuck God. And that was
his personal assistant.
Yeah. It was just a secretary demon. So it strikes me as either very disjointed in the original language, and they wanted to preserve that because obviously 1600s France or 1600s Italy, they didn't write in modern English, which I don't have an issue with that. It'd be weird if they did, frankly. So either it was very disjointed and the translator wanted to preserve how disjointed and panicky it was, or it is all your base are belong to us level translation.
We may never know.
We might, because I have literally no idea how to find that out other than becoming a very, very specific historian and learning Italian. And I'm not fucking doing that. I have a grudge against Italian, apparently, starting now. So the nuns decided, sorry, I have devil in my throat. Hold on. I'm having a terrible time with air today, just as a concept. The nuns decided that the event was Satan trying to turn Maria away from God. So they put the letter on display because it's a postcard from a major celebrity. What else are you going to do?
Maybe not put it on display where somebody else could have access to it.
That'd be weird.
Or put it on display and give Lucifer exactly what he wanted, I guess. The message is out there. Now everybody sees it.
Yeah, but nobody can read it. Satan,
but they know now because the story's going to get passed around.
Yeah. Satan always comes off as he's either playing too long of a con, or he's really stupid in every story about him.
He's really just playing it as he goes, just figuring out as he goes along, and nothing ever connects.
Yeah. I listened to the podcast Knowledge Fight, which lately has been on a big Satan kick because Alex Jones is becoming a weird kind of televangelist. Becoming in the 2000s, he kind of kept a lid on it. He implied that he thought it was a religious thing, but lately he's just been coming out and saying I'm fighting the literal Christian devil. It's the devil. It goes Bill Gates, devil. Actually, the episode I was listening to today, they were playing clips where he was I know all of this because I have Satan's power, and so I can see Lucifer because I have the Lucifer power. But I set that power aside to fight for your freedom. So
what?
Yeah. Oh, that was
fucking
all.
Alex Jones, man.
If I had more time, that would be the episode. Like,
what the hell?
Yeah, I heard that and I was like, oh man, I need to. I can't research that episode, write it, record it, and edit it in 3 days because it's going to be too fucking much. But that was almost the episode. And I don't remember what got that brought up.
Telling this Lucifer writing, nobody being able to understand the note, and the note is on display.
Yeah, I still have no idea how A led to B, but you know what? I'll just go ahead and bring up Alex Jones again in a minute. So it'll all come together and I can cut out this moment of indecision and just put in a segue and it'll sound planned. Or I'll leave that in and people can listen to me scramble because I don't have chops. So apparently being a nun back in the day made you a linguist, which I don't think makes a lot of sense. Like generally educated people were in religious institutions. That's the kind of place you went to become a man of letters. But like the idea is that like she had a huge command of a very broad group of languages, which doesn't make sense. It would make sense for her to know Latin, Greek, Hebrew. So it makes sense for her to know like Hebrew, Latin, Greek, which is the languages that most of the Bible was written in, some Aramaic. But after everything shook out, a lot of the transcripts are just Hebrew and Greek. Then I'll give her Italian, which is just the neglected, undernourished F student that Latin wishes it could hide in a closet like it's Harry Potter. And
wow.
I don't know what my thing against Italy is, but apparently I have one. And so I am leaning all the fuck the way into it. And I can give her Norse because like the runes of Northern Europe, because with the Vikings, they went to Canada. We found them as far as Arizona. There are runic glyphs that were found by the Hagia Sophia in the Middle East, which if you're going to make it to the Middle East, it seems like going down to Italy and just like looping over isn't a bad way to do it if you don't want to walk, all the fuck the way around. So
no, it's probably a good idea for like to take it's probably a good idea for like a resting point too. Just take a pause and yeah.
Yeah. So I can give her that. Also, because a lot of Scandinavians did convert, it makes sense that at some point, they're very used to traveling. Take a hop over to Rome. Fuck it. That's the window of languages that I will give her, which amounted to writing out a language in which some of it apparently kind of looked like pitchforks, which those are symbols used in languages. It does kind of all lead to like we have an account of somebody who arrived later. Obviously, we have Sister Maria's firsthand account, but the proof is really, can we compare it to other examples? So the question becomes, how do we know what the devil's handwriting looks like?
Well, the devil didn't even write it.
How do we know what that demon's handwriting looks like? Maybe it's the same demon. It would make sense for him to just have a secretary demon follow him around. If I'm Satan, if I'm immortal, I'm going to live forever, presumably, possibly until God kills me in Revelation.
It's up in the air.
Yeah, but like I'm going to have one, maybe two assistants. Yeah,
but if you had assistants, then he wouldn't be making such random decisions that don't quite line up, because it seems like somebody would have told him, like the left hand is no idea what the right hand is doing.
Yeah. Kind of like when I tell my toddler to send a message to his mom and then I get a text message that says what, but obviously Satan didn't have text messaging. It's the 1700s. He had to use mail like everybody else. The way that we know what Satan's handwriting looks like is because of the handwriting in a book called The Devil in Britain and America by John Ashton. This has a small piece of handwriting by the devil that came originally from Tessio Ambrogio degli Albanesi, who got it from Ludovico Spoletano, who's the only Italian with a pronounceable name in this fucking thing. Italian names should all sound like they're from The Godfather. Spoletano, Corleone. Let's just go to the worst naming stereotypes. Okay, you get Spoletano, you get Corleone, you get Capone, and you get any noun used as an adjective.
That is the whitest thing to say.
No, Isabella Tomasi di Lampedusa. What you get is Bella the Ice Pick. That's what you get.
I want all my people to be stereotypes. Why can't all these people be stereotypes?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, why can't these people be stereotypes? I'm not saying why can't you be a stereotype. I'm saying why can't, that's not as hurtful because nobody cares about Italian.
Wow.
what the fuck?
What did you drink today? Like, you just drank some like...
I really hate spaghetti. Can we just...
Oh my God.
The podcast is about this now. I hate spaghetti. It doesn't taste good. No matter what you do to it, it doesn't taste good. It doesn't.
Just use angel hair. Angel hair is amazing.
Not in spaghetti.
Yeah, it is.
No, angel hair is
Makes
not good in spaghetti.
I eat spaghetti all the time. I opt for angel hair whenever I do some kind of like spaghetti thing that requires like long noodles.
Angel hair is for a little bit of olive oil mixed up, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and a little bit of like just whatever seasonings you think sound good on pasta right now. Generally things that are green and leafy. That's what goes on angel hair.
Yeah, but also it works for spaghetti too because the noodles are not that as thick. Or, just don't do the traditional spaghetti anymore.
I've done the traditional spaghetti.
No, so just don't do it anymore.
I know. I'm saying I've done both traditional spaghetti and what Americans think is spaghetti, and they both suck. I've spent an hour standing in my kitchen hand making sauce.
Oh, God, no.
Seeding and peeling and crushing tomatoes and making it, I used fake meat because I don't eat meat. Having the like meat dish with some noodles instead of noodles with like a jar of watery, horrible stuff that if you gave it to an Italian, they would punch you in the face. I've done that because I generally with foods I don't like, if I find like some really labor intensive recipe, I make it from scratch. I end up liking it. I fucking hated it. I didn't like it. If I want spaghetti, I'll eat a pizza. Like, because pizza is just good spaghetti. They're the same thing.
Oh, because of the dough is like basically the same, that thing that you would make the pasta out of.
Yeah, all Italian food is the same thing. It's red sauce, some kind of veggie, pasta. It's all the same thing. If you take pizza dough and cut it into strips, all you have is just like a weirdly fluffy lasagna. And if you get a calzone, all you have is a good lasagna.
You put some thought into this.
I have strong pizza-based opinions.
Wow. You have a lot of strong opinions today.
I do.
Very strong opinions.
Taking big swings. Spaghetti sucks. Lasagna sucks. Pizza's good, but only American pizza and not from the Midwest. Fuck Italy and fuck France and fuck Mussolini's granddaughter. But that's because she's like kind of fashy. If your grandpa's Mussolini, you have to lean far away from fashy. And fuck Jim Carrey. That's an anti-vax thing, though. It's a different thing.
No, I was thinking about saying that, but then I figured it would bring you onto another tangent off of the tangent that was... You already have a lot to cut out, so,
May not cut that out. just
wow.
There's some exploring that needs to happen today. So this piece of the devil's calligraphy came from Tessio Ambrogio degli Albonesi, and he got it from a sorcerer named Ludovico Spoletano. And according to both John Ashton's The Devil in Britain and America, which clearly covers Italians, and a 1999 Weekly World News, Spoletano summoned the devil on purpose, which is kind of a change from the theme of the episode, and asked him to answer some questions. In response to this, Satan, or presumably his stenographer, because we've established Satan doesn't do his own writing, like you pointed out, picked up a pen and wrote down the information very clearly and very, very concisely. So Spoletano went to this Tessio Ambrogio guy and asked him, hey, could you translate this? And like the idea that it was written very clearly gets kind of fucked up for me. And I'm going to quote kind of at length from the Ashton book. The frontispiece is supposed to be the only specimen of satanic calligraphy in existence. I will include that in show notes or on the website, and is, page 6, taken from the Introductio in Chaldeicam Linguam, etc., which is introduction to the Chaldean language, and then the etc. is Ashton's, by Albanesi, Pavia 1532, because we're reading citations. The other says that by the conjuration of Ludovico Spoletano, the devil was called up and adjured to write a legible and clear answer to a question asked him. Some invisible power took the pen, which seems suspended in the air, and rapidly wrote what is facsimile. The writing was given to Albanesi, who, however, confessed that no one can decipher it, and his chief printer reproduced it very accurately. I am told by experts that in some of the characters may be found a trace of Amharic, a language spoken in its purity in the province of Amhara in Ethiopia, and which, according to a legend, was the primeval language spoken in Eden.
That was a mouthful.
It is. So we have that copy of the Devil's Handwriting from the 1500s, and that is what we can compare all the other stuff to if we so choose. And we have a way to track down the Garden of Eden out of it. And it was a a legible and clear answer, which is why Albanese was like, no one will ever be able to translate this. No one will know. So we can't figure out the question unless we get Douglas Adams to build us a supercomputer on another planet.
It still didn't answer the question. So, I mean, not in a way that anybody understood. So it really didn't matter.
In Hitchhiker's Guide?
Yeah. That
was Adams being an existentialist. The question was absolutely answered. And the question made a lot of sense because the question was, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? And Adams had a very existentialist bend. So he also knew computers. And
oh, that's right. 42. It means something in the computer. I think I know what you're leading to. And I think I had read it before, but I don't remember exactly what it was because it sounds familiar.
42 is the ASCII code for an asterisk, which I don't know, the only one that's coming to mind is Lua. And I think C+ is a wildcard symbol. So yeah, it was literally the question was, what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And the computer gave them back a variable. So the answer to life, the universe, and everything is whatever you fill in the variable with. It was just a tongue-in-cheek way for Adams to kind of do an existentialism.
Okay. Oh.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a picture using screen share because we're in different parts of the void. That is the Amharic alphabet. That's taken from researchgate.net, which is usually reliable.
Okay.
And it would have come up at some point during, like anthropology. So that's the Amharic alphabet. And that should be, if I hit the right button, the facsimile of the only known specimen of the devil's writing from the devil in Britain and America.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my issue here is it seems like close-ish. And I think if I put it next to like the Hebrew alphabet, it would also look close-ish because Amharic would kind of look close-ish. So it seems to me, given where Ethiopia is in northeastern Africa, that the fact that it's an Afro-Semitic language might have played into whatever was going on there. Because clearly it was Satan. But the idea that like Eden is in Ethiopia is a pretty common idea. The idea that it's in Africa because it was written by people who would have been familiar with Africa and the Middle East. So there's a lot of things where stuff pops up like, oh, that's Africa, because that's what happens when you have people from a place write about it. Like I grew up in the Portland area. If I wrote a book about Portland, it would probably be pretty accurate to what's there. Like, and then people in 2000 years could use it to know that I am God. So like, yes, it's close, but it's not like close enough to be able to say that it's, this type of Ethiopian is definitely the language spoken in Eden. And it's not close enough to be able to say this type of Ethiopian is definitely what was written on the note. That seems like a stretch. Incidentally, just as a quick aside of like, this is supposedly Amharic, and that's something I'll probably look into more because I find that kind of like linguistic anthropology really interesting. And given that, Eastern Africa is where humans came from and where we started to develop a lot of these things, I think it's interesting to look at like how that may have developed. Currently, there's, I think I saw like 32 million native speakers of Amharic, and I couldn't find any information on how old it is. I'm going to go ahead and guess, though, that it's not the same now that it was in the 1500s, because that's how fucking language works. As an aside, before we leave that aside, I did find, and it's just one of those things where like, I don't want to be the only one that has this in their head. I found a mention of him in the 1923 Journal of American Oriental Society that is very like proper 1920s, like throwing shade at a historical figure. It said, in 1539, Ambrosio Tessio gave the world his introduction in linguam Chalcidacum, Syriacum, et que Armenicum et decum alias linguas. It does not diminish its merits that he generously included also a description of the system of writing employed by the devil. And I love that because they start off by saying in 1539, Ambrosio Tessio wrote Introduction to the Languages of Chaldea, Syria, and Armenia, and 10 other languages. Also the devil. What the fuck was he doing? Like the two readings of that are also this idiot included the devil, but it's still a good book. And also, no. It's a good book. Just because you included the devil doesn't mean it's fucking stupid. And I feel like both readings of it would have ruined Ambrosio's day.
Probably.
Back to Sister Maria's note. now that it's established that there is devilish handwriting otherwise to be able to compare it to, it was equally indecipherable. It was 300 years before the Ludum Science Center in Catania used super secret hacker dark web government encryption to crack in the style of using an algorithm that was found on the dark web and military grade decryption software. But I'm not even sure what that would mean.
Elite hackers, that's what it means.
Yeah, I not if it's military grade. Like, I think they mean that to sound impressive, but it's really hard for that to sound impressive to somebody in a country who, like, the people who decide what's military grade brought Mark Zuckerberg in to talk about, like, that time where he sold the election to a fascist and he fucking spent 2 hours explaining what the internet is to them. Like, cool, it's military grade. The people in my country who make that decision asked if the internet was a series of tubes. So yeah, it's not great. This country has the show Scorpion about the guy who hacked NASA and so he became a secret agent.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that show.
That quickly went off the rails, but it was it was based on, the origin story was an actual kid who hacked NASA. Like, cool, government encryption that was taken out one time by a wunderkind. Like, cool, military grade decryption software. Couldn't figure out how to stop a phishing scam or like find Russian hackers. Like, military grade decryption software. My first thought is America, who's losing a cyber war to Russia right now. So unless it's Russian decryption software, I'm not impressed.
Yeah, apparently maybe it only works on Satan. It's only his writing that's susceptible to military grade.
It's what's being used by the Alex Jones Patriots. Fight the globalists. So yeah, I also military grade, it literally just means that it meets DoD specifications. And like my wallet and my cell phone case are both military grade. They don't explode when you drop them. Like that's the DoD guidance. Grenades explode when dropped. Cell phone case does not explode when dropped. Wallet only explodes when dropped on purpose. It's in the section labeled "Does it explode when you drop it?" which is right above the section "Can I eat it?" Turns out you can eat military grade decryption software. I checked.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. So the team used a mix of Greek, Arabic, runes, and Latin. Which, like mentioned earlier, like that and Italian are the languages that I'm assuming that she would know from studying the Bible, in a place where like Muslim people are closer than, like England. Like, Italy's not far away from the part of the world that would make Arabic useful. She probably used it at least once. So using that, the team cracked 15 lines of the note, which was 70% of it. I found out the other 6 pages were probably pitchforks, which were prolific. And if it was Amharic, no fucking excuse. Like, that's an H, dude. Get with it. It's an H with a little dot under it. Which I think just means that you hit the H really hard. The parts that they translated said things include. I can't find any evidence at all that this note ever existed or was translated. I just find a lot of fucking clickbaity articles that kept advertising to me, which is how I learned about this. But yeah, like I'm looking in academic journals, just Googling, looking at like the bizarre fucking Satan wikis that I found. Like, I can find no evidence this note ever existed. Looking at the Ludum Center, I can't find any evidence that any of this exists. So what this magical, mysterious note that I can't find if it exists said was, in addition to other things.
We're trying to contact you about your car's warranty.
It also said that in addition to that, which was 11 of the 15 lines they translated, it said that God was an invention of man, the Trinity or dead weights. God thinks he can free mortals. Perhaps now Styx is certain. God does not exist. The Trinity is fake. There is only me, which supposedly has a logical structure and sense to it. But that logical structure is bad because it's really contradictory.
You should have edited it first before you let people see it.
Yeah. I mean, this happened in the 1600s. Like, Lucifer had time to edit. Maria had time to edit. Presumably this was passed down through the people who all had time to edit. The Ludum Science Center had time to edit. They could have just been like, hey, is this making an existential claim or not? That's what I want to know. Are we saying that God exists and thinks he can free mortals? Or does he think that he can free mortals like Sauron thinks that he can finally take the ring. Like, what kind of thing are we dealing with here? And what the fuck does the river Styx have to do with this? And is it sentient? I only know two things about Styx. One, it is a river. Two, they, Styx the band, are very grateful to Mr. Roboto. I guess also that they've spent a long time running from the long arm of the law. Hangman's coming down from the gallows and I don't have very long.
I don't know any of the lyrics. That's all I've ever heard. So
I could probably sit here and sing that entire song.
No. It's also something about that's the part about that comes after is about the long arm of the law. Yeah. Okay.
There was like a week-long period where that was the only media I consumed was that Styx song.
I can't even say anything because I've done that to a few recently. So I once listened to Little Clone Baby for 8 hours on end, repeated for like 3 or 4 days in a row. Most of the stuff I've been listening to and following now appear to be like, it's just smaller indie stuff. Well, not indie stuff, but like smaller producer stuff, like so designing themselves and supporting themselves and stuff. So
yeah, I really like. So there's a number of explanations as to what caused Sister Maria to feel as though she were being consumed by Satan. One of those is that she was being consumed by Satan. And that is by far the strongest case. Like that is definitely what's going on. And to back that up, I do want to research. He might be a frequent flyer as podcast reference. But I would like to refer to Richard Gallagher of Columbia University, who believes that demons are totes realsies. They talk to you in other languages. And that may be either just to fuck with you and unsettle you because demons are dicks like that. And it might be to show off because can you speak all the languages? No, because you have a dumb human brain.
An asshole.
I fucking hate the human brain. That was actually just me projecting onto the demon, and the demon didn't deserve that. I won't be happy with my brain until I can plug in an external hard drive or just upgrade the internal memory.
I think I need to do a defragmentation.
Maybe. This is always like right on the edge of danger of becoming a transhumanism podcast. Of just like, God fucked up. This is how we can fix it with science. The human form is terrible. Let's fucking upgrade. Yes, I
Yeah, it's not 5 stars. It's definitely not going to get 5 stars. When I reach the end, I'm just like going to give a Yelp review of like 0 or 5.
I think that a transhumanism podcast where we just shit on
how terrible our bodies are. How much it sucks to like get older. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we could probably put up like Joe Rogan numbers with people over 30 of just like my back hurts and I want my spine to have suspension and like my knees hurt and I want ones with a hydraulic mechanism that lets me super jump. Fuck this.
Yeah. Fuck that. Yeah. Jump over a goddamn building.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the podcast. That's the podcast now.
Everything is the podcast now.
Everything is the podcast now. At no point in the last year and a half have I given any indication that I have any idea or plan or know where I'm going. This could be a video game podcast next week. Just we're reviewing fucking the old vampire game from 12 years ago. Fuck it.
I mean, you made a Trello board and everything. I have to assume you've got some kind of idea.
A bitch about things. So anyway, Richard Gallagher thinks that demons are totally real. They like to fuck with you or show off about their big demon brain and make you feel inferior because you have a stupid, squishy, gray, wrinkled blob in your head. And scariest of all, he believes that people act weird and you can't explain that with psychology. Can't explain all the ways that people act weird. And the reason why that's the scariest thing of all is because he is a licensed and practicing psychologist in New York and an actual no shit demon hunter.
So why would you get the degree to practice psychology if you believe that can't be explained? It can't be used to explain things. What are you doing? What's the point?
Being an asshole.
Yeah, other than that.
That's, I don't know, man. Like, I wish I knew what these people were thinking.
That's a lot of investment. That's a long investment for something you think is not useful.
Learning about beliefs and like how we form beliefs and like learning about epistemology and learning about psychology and learning about like science is part of what made me an atheist. Like, I mean, the other 90% of it was like toxic and horribly destructive behaviors that I had been taught were holy things handed down to me by God as my right as part of the master gender and the master race. But the other 10% was the doubt instilled in me by learning things. So like, I'm so confused by people like Richard Gallagher who are like, No, it's wild what the brain can do. Our brain has an amazing ability to fuck with us. Like it hates us. And that doesn't make it
actively
demons. Yeah. Like, are you kidding? The
demons existed and he was a demon hunter. They probably would already be messing with him, or he would have already stopped existing.
I don't know, because he has a rosary.
Okay.
I don't, that's it. The blood of Jesus. And the blood of Jesus is such a good protecting that for some reason, only people who believe really hard get possessed. That can't be right.
You got to want it, but not that much. Just a little less.
Everybody
That's
else.
Too much.
Everybody who isn't Christian gets possessed, but only Christians fight it. And that's why we have to tie children to beds and hit them with sticks until their bones break. There we go. Fixed it. Yay.
Dark.
Yeah. I can't not go dark. I'm trying to like have, just be upbeat, but like,
spooky episode, I guess. So
this guy is a psychiatrist who's like, yeah, demons are real. Exorcism is fine. Never mind the very real and incredible amount of harm that has been done by people believing that. The kind of trauma that like even modern exorcisms, which while emotionally and mentally and frequently physically trauma inducing, they're fairly tame by like medieval standards, right? Mm-hmm. Which it's the same kind of thing where like, American prisons are in the dark ages, except that they're as horrible as they are, pretty tame compared to the actual dark ages. Like, so I don't understand how you can be a psychiatrist, see the kind of damage that these beliefs do, and then go, not only is this all real, I'm going to help find them.
Totally legit.
Like, and I've seen cognitive dissonance and stuck my head under my blanket and yelled, no, you can't get me. And I still don't understand the level of cognitive dissonance it takes to have a PhD in mental illness and then go accept demons. That part's true.
He went that far that he can show the world how right he is and how wrong they were. Yeah. I guess.
Like, so in the way back in the forever ago in the archives, I talked about Brahmanology. And one of the big proponents of that is a guy named Todd Wood. And he went to Harvard and got a degree in biology and like studied with Stephen Jay Gould and like did big impressive stuff, and then turned around and went, yeah, no, evolution's a very, very convincing and successful scientific theory. It's just bullshit because it's not the Bible. And like that I get, right? Because that's not like I have a degree in how Brahmanology literally hurts people. Evolution is bullshit. This is I have a degree in how this literally hurts people, and it's bullshit. And like the DSM has like religious exemptions for mental illness in it. Maybe sometimes it shouldn't though. Maybe in 90% of cases where we have religious exemptions, it shouldn't be a thing. Maybe it doesn't matter if you think it's God talking to you. If you think people who aren't you are talking to you, maybe that's a thing that should be discussed instead of coddling grownups who have imaginary friends, and worse, in Gallagher's case, imaginary enemies. In a Psychology Today article in 2012, Dr. Stephen Diamond said exorcism may have been a kind of therapy. And I didn't look to see if he's dead, because if he hasn't died since then, I'll be sad I'm still sharing the planet with him. And it takes a lot to get me to have that attitude towards somebody, because like...
The hell? That's just... I ain't able to say that other than what the hell?
Yeah, like it hasn't been long enough since 2012 for that to just be like a product of the time. The kind of successful treatment that violent religious abuse is not treatment by any stretch. It's just hitting people until they stop, right? Like ADHD kids, they're not quiet and reserved because you disciplined and beat the ADHD out of them. They're quiet and reserved because
fear. Yeah,
you've taught them that not masking and not using up their mental and emotional resources, hiding it, will hurt.
Yeah, it's adaptation to your environment.
Yeah, so like it's all fucked, and psychiatry is terrifying, and you should go to a therapist if you need one. Like
but not that guy.
Not that guy.
Not that guy.
Not that guy. Check. I when I started going to my current therapist, I told her I'm looking for like secular and evidence-based. And like, if I ask, I would like you to be able to like point me towards a paper. And I have said this to therapists in the past, and they have said things like, well, just give it up to the universe. And if I get that kind of like, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, so I'm secular bullshit from you, I will immediately ask for a new therapist. Like I set that down as a border hard, like right away. That was drawn in the sand. And sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, you can totally do that. Like, it's very important, like, to know that you can do that. You can draw those boundaries.
Yeah.
And you can ask, when you go in, you can ask, them questions about the things that matter to you to decide whether or not you're going to stay in this like working relationship or if you're going to go find someone else. Like you get that choice. Like you don't have to.
Definitely. And and if they can't take boundaries, if a therapist can't take boundaries being set up, they're a bad therapist.
They're going to put you in some very dangerous or uncomfortable situations again and again. And they're not going to have a problem with it.
Yeah. Like it's not great, but every profession has bad ones. So the point is if you need therapy, if you need psychiatry, find a therapist, find a psychiatrist. I recommend you don't go to Richard Gallagher. He might exercise you. And speaking of somebody who shouldn't have gone to Richard Gallagher because he might have exercised her, there is an idea that maybe Sister Maria was schizophrenic and having auditory hallucinations that she interpreted to be the devil.
That wouldn't be the first time I think that's happened in history.
Yeah. I mean, like the Son of Sam, even is recent history. And like he was a serial killer over it. So true crime podcast. So yeah, it happens that you have auditory hallucinations. You go, oh, that's the devil. I don't take your medical diagnoses from a podcast. And I'm not an expert in psychology. So I'm going to reference people who are experts in things I'm not experts in. And I'm also not going to diagnose Sister Maria because I'm not qualified. I have not met her and I probably won't meet her because she's been dead for 300 years. So that being said, in a 2016 paper in Consciousness and Cognition by Matthew Ratcliffe and Sam Wilkinson, they suggest that anxiety and unwelcome negative thoughts can team up to create what feel like verbal hallucinations. And then the anxiety response to that causes them to be seen as alien. And trying to duck uncomfortable thoughts with anxiety instead of processing them is something that I do feel comfortable saying will fuck up your inner space. And in the abstract to the paper Thought Insertion Clarified from the Journal of Consciousness Studies, Ratcliffe and Wilkinson go on to clarify that this is a trait experienced in schizophrenia and involves experiencing your thoughts as someone else's. And the way that philosophers would make sense of this, and the way that Ratcliffe and Wilkinson would make sense of this as people with a philosophical bend, is the distinction between agency and ownership. You're the owner of the thought, but you're not the agent of the thought. So you're the owner of the car, but you're not the person who put a baseball bat through it, but it's still your issue to deal with. I meant baseball. I didn't mean baseball bat. One of those is an accident because the neighborhood kids are playing stickball. The other one is a crime. So yeah, it's neighborhood kids are playing a game, throw a ball through your window. You're the owner of the window. That's your mess. You have to sweep it up. You have to deal with the paperwork, but it wasn't your agency that made the hole in the window. So it's kind of like that. You perceive the thoughts as being yours. They're in your head. You have to clean them up, but you're not the one who thought them, which I have felt like thoughts are being inserted into my head from an outside force as part of an anxiety response from not understanding what was going on in my head. And I was raised in a house where like Satan's out to get you. I was raised to believe that, if you're not a good Christian, the devil will sneak into your head and fuck with you. And that does mess you up. Like even in, the supposedly secular world of today, I very much wondered if that was the devil making me do things. So let's get rid of the church. In 2017, Lourdes Del Rosso, Justin Liegman, and Romy Hoke wrote a case study about a 17-year-old girl who began to have audio hallucinations about her family speaking to her or to each other when she was falling asleep after having to move away with her mom due to her parents' divorce. When she was more anxious, they spoke more intensely and they got more aggressive. And when they were calm, they were more relaxed and genial. And while I'm not diagnosing Maria by any stretch, and I'm sure Cee Cee wouldn't condone it if I did, it does make sense that interpreted through the thought insertion idea of separating agency with ownership and intrusive thoughts coming on, especially if you're in a strict religious environment, especially if there is or has recently been a fucking plague. If you're having doubts and you're told that those doubts are, placed there by Satan, it does make a lot of sense to interpret that as Satan, to give the agency to Satan. And it's a very upsetting and disorienting kind of dissociation. So without making a diagnosis, it seems to me that like this could be a case of not having therapy in the 1600s to help somebody with religious trauma, anxiety, or just general religious anxiety, because religion, especially the Abrahamic ones, are built on isolating people and built on making them anxious. Isolating socially, you cut them off and from the world outside because they're unholy and unclean. So there's a social isolation where you're in a place that just feeds into a cycle of anxiety. That makes a lot of sense. The BuzzFeed video that I took in as part of this stressed a lot of things about isolation. And as we know, and as we see in long-term segregation inmates, that can cause audiovisual hallucinations. That's why we're one of like a couple modern societies, as much as I hate that term, that still don't view it as cruel and unusual punishment because of the psychological damage that it does. So if these things were coupled with, let's say, intensive isolation and prayer, it's perfectly reasonable that it could have caused an issue, because things can cause issues. The Ludum Science Center director, Daniele Abate, another Italian, constructed a psychological profile for Maria and said he thinks she was schizophrenic or bipolar. But the only Ludum Science Center I can find is a museum. I can't find anything on Daniele Abate's credentials or who he is, aside from some clips that show a guy in a lab coat with a name under it. Yeah. And that's not to say he isn't a scientist with credentials. It's just I'm having a fuck all of a time figuring out who he is or what those are or where he works or where the Ludum Science Center would do science center things. Because like they have research universities in Italy. They don't need a museum to do it. The Portland State University is a short trip from OMSI. One of those is a lot more likely to do scientific research than the other. So without finding any kind of information, all I can do is make wild and unbased and unfounded claims. So if Daniele Abate is real, please don't sue me. But what I think happened was I think Daniele Abate is Satan. I think that the Archbishop of France in the 1600s was Satan. I think that the prioress of Sister Maria's convent was Satan. I think that the whole thing was orchestrated by Satan, and Satan is starting to, for a little while, he was masquerading as the director of a Ludum Science Center, which is a museum. Yeah. And he came up with this psychological profile thing because like you need more material than just the one thing to make a psychological profile. Otherwise, it's just a wild ass guess. But a lot of people tend to think like there is a vein of society who thinks that, psychology is just wild ass guesses. So they won't pay attention. And this is being distributed on clickbaity websites because we live in a world where clickbaity websites is more trusted than reputable news sources. What I'm saying is, I think that this was all orchestrated by Satan and people started getting onto him. And so he came up with this Daniele Abate, which is clearly a fake name. No Italian has a name that sensible and pronounceable in order to throw everybody off of his trail.
I have no words for this.
That is clearly it. There is no other explanation unless Daniele Abate is real, in which case the other explanation is that she may have been mentally ill and or traumatized and your name is ridiculous because it's not Italian enough.
Again, with this hill, you've picked so many hills and he's just falling off the hills and landed on a new one to like.
Well, you know what? If Italy wants me to be nicer to it, then they should give us more listeners.
Wow.
I'm going to start abusing places that we don't have enough listeners.
And then there will never be listeners from that place.
People are really happy to be abused.
Consensually.
They chose to download it.
They did not know in advance that they were going to be.
I'll put a warning at the beginning. The Apostates Playground podcast has foul language and strong language and feels that Kent Hovind needs to fuck himself. This week's country to be targeted will be, I just fill in the blank, 180 countries. I can keep this going for 180 episodes. We've been doing bi-weekly, which may change depending on how life goes. Probably will change eventually depending on how life goes. But if we can figure for bi-weekly, that's 360 months. Nope. Got to do the math the other way. That's 90 something months, 93 months. I'm going to say 90 months because I know there's 180-ish countries. So I'm going to say 90 months. 90 months is that's damn near a decade. So we can keep this going for a while.
So, your new objective basically is just piss off everybody.
Insult every country. And then by the time I'm done, we should be through the Bible and then start on the Quran. And we can go from pissing off every country to getting a fatwa. Technically, the podcast is illegal in Japan and China because it's illegal to insult people. And
wow,
we can make it illegal in Thailand.
I don't think that should be a goal.
The Apostates Playground banned in multiple countries.
I mean, plenty of people could be banned in multiple countries. I mean, if you want to go that route, you I don't know if you want to go that route.
I don't know. It worked for UFC.
Just seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, it worked for UFC, but it did cause Joe Rogan to shave his head and start talking about ivermectin and be friends with Alex Jones. Brings it back around. I could just shave my head and start talking about ivermectin. It'd mainly be me here, bald, sitting here going, ivermectin is for horses. Stupid fuck. You look disgusted by that. Look, every time.
No, really. I have zero things to say at this. Like, I just ran out of words.
The system is made to reward evil. Let's be bad guys.
I don't think I can. I've done shady things before and I didn't feel good afterwards. I don't think I can. I don't think the reward will feel like it's worth the risk.
Joel Osteen is worth like $130 million. We would be able to afford to just like buy other people to have our guilt for us.
That's not how guilt works.
Why?
Because it's guilt is a thing you experience within. You can't outsource guilt.
That's dumb though. I don't like it.
What the fuck? That's dumb though. Is like, are you for?
That's who I spend most of my day talking to.
Fair. I said that and I forgot that you do in fact deal with a 4-year-old.
That's how he argues. We go back and forth. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Okay, I hear you, but here's the thing. Counterpoint? No. Yes, no. Counterpoint? Yes. Like that's actually how our conversations go.
Couldn't do it.
Daddy, can I eat this? No. Why? Because it's not yours, but I want it. Yeah, it's not yours. So me eat? No. Guilt is dumb and I hate it.
Yeah.
Hi guys, it's Satan. Listen, I don't even know what they're talking about anymore, so I'm just going to go ahead and do an intro. It's something about how Cee Cee likes wearing pantyhose with slack. I don't know. So the point is as we discussed in this episode, I've been getting up to shenanigans, and it's been a while since I've had a vacation. Either I can come visit you at your house, or you can go to patreon.com/apostatesplayground and pledge as little as $1 a month to, I don't know, help fuel this hobby. You can also go to theapostatesplayground.com and share that website around, and you can share this on social media and give it a 5-star wherever you're listening to it. Have a happy Halloween, and remember, spread the show, or I'll fuck you in the soul.